So call to order, councillors. It is 4:30, so we'll commence our public forum for November 2021. Before we start, if you could please check that your mobile devices are turned to silent. And as it is tradition for public meetings and events to acknowledge country, this evening I will use the acknowledgement developed with the Thungari-Dungari people. That Kempsey Shire Council acknowledges the land of the Thungari-Dungari Nation. We pay respects to the elders past and present. We acknowledge the role of emerging leaders to continue to guide us in the future. We acknowledge the stolen generation and the need to change practices to be inclusive. This land always was and always will be Thungari-Dungari land. I also acknowledge the lands of other Aboriginal people from where people are joining us through technology today. So welcome everyone to Public Forum. This coincides with the November Council meeting, which will be held tomorrow, commencing at 9 o'clock, and relates to representation on agenda item matters for the ordinary meeting of Council. For this meeting, we've updated our COVID-19 practices to conform with the current orders that are in place within New South Wales. The public gallery is limited to, I think, 36 people, maybe 38 people, and this forum is a hybrid meeting that includes people joining us by Zoom. It is a requirement that I advise all present that public forum is being live streamed, and your attendance at this meeting is taken as consent to the possibility that your image and or voice may be recorded and broadcast to the public via our live stream. In chambers this evening, we have Councillor Dean Saul, Councillor Sue McGinn, Councillor Mark Baxter. Our Deputy Mayor Anthony Patterson has called. He's held up between Kempsey and Port Macquarie, but as soon as he can get here, he will be joining us. Myself, Liz Campbell, the Mayor and Chairperson. We're joined by our Director Operations, and no we're not, and Planning, Robert Fish. He is online. Hello, Robert. Director Corporate and Commercial, Stephen Mitchell. Our General Manager, Craig Milburn. Our Manager Governance, Daniel Thorogood. And joining us by Zoom is Councillor Williams, Morris, Horval and Shields. And we have some members of the public in our gallery, so welcome. I call for any conflict of interest declarations, councillors. Councillor McGinn.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to declare non-significant, non-pecuniary interest in item 11.1 as I'm known to one of the parties.
Thank you, councillor. I'll now ask the General Manager if he'll outline the guidelines for public forum.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll just summarise these as Jan's actually spoken before, so she knows them well, but for members of the public who might be listening, each speaker is permitted 5 minutes to address council on their topic. They are to maintain the discussion on the topic that's actually on the agenda. The councillors can ask questions of the speaker and they have up to 1 minute to answer each of those. They can also decline to answer any questions they may wish. The speaker should refrain from any defamatory or inappropriate language in their presentations, and the chair has the ability to stop a speaker if required if they infringe those areas. So that's a brief summary, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, General Manager. This morning we have one public forum speaker. It is on item 9.8, dog walking beach access at Crescent Head, and Jan Eason will be speaking, I think, for the recommendation, but we will hear what Jan has to say. So if you'd like to come forward, thank you, Jan.
Okay. Well, firstly, I'd like to thank you for giving me the opportunity to come and speak today, and we most certainly are in favour of the action that is Council has taken to support our concerns. I'd like to thank Council for listening and for acting decisively on concerns that we've raised, and a very special thank you to the Mayor for following up with the Minister, even though the responses that the Crescent Head Dog and Walkers Group and the Shire Council are receiving from the Minister are not looking that encouraging. It doesn't mean that our voices shouldn't be heard. We have since followed up. We have found out that the National Parks and Wildlife Service has a regional advisory council, and they have a council that goes from Taree all the way to Tweed Heads. There are two councils, and they have ministerial appointments on them. The only person that is common to both of those councils is Dr. Rosemary Black, and we have made an approach to her and asked if we could speak to the Regional Advisory Council, because they ultimately will be the group that recommend to the Minister any issues that are coming from the review of management plans for national parks. We have also asked Kempsey Shire Council to be invited to that meeting, and they have been. And we were going to try and arrange a meeting to speak with councillors before that meeting, but this opportunity provided itself, which means that we can speak to everybody all at once and have a talk about what's happening. I've handed out some maps. The first map is the option that Kempsey Shire Council chose for Crescent Head dog walking. It is not the option that we asked for, but it was the one that Council chose, and it's the one that we support. We strongly support it, but we have some questions for Council. We'd like to know on that first map what the green area is, and we're assuming it may be the border where the Crown Marine Reserve crosses the beach. We want to know who owns the beach from the low tide watermark, and we also like to know, did Council give any of the Killick Beach from the low tide watermark to national parks? Is Killick Beach Crown land from Crescent Head all of the way to Hungry Head? If the entire Killick Beach was labelled, as in this map, national parks, no dogs above high tide mark, we would only need to negotiate access to the beach via Richardson's Crossing. Technically, if you drive from Loftus Road along Richardson's Crossing to the 4x4 beach access, you can drive your car into the beach and unload your dog. But we're not in favour either of encouraging all four-wheel drives onto the beach. The most sensible option for us would be to be able to unload them in the car park. If that option is not available to us, then there is no other legal course of action. You know as well as I do that National Parks and Wildlife Service feel that they hold all the cards and they are not negotiating. And so our only option is a re-gazette. It's the only legal option that we have available to us. If I can move down to Goolawah and have a look at that. Goolawah historically has been a regional park along with 20 others in this state. With the current and continuing enforcement of national parks regulation, we challenge the validity of some of those. I'd like to give you a quote from the letter we received from the Minister's Office, which was written by the Director, Russell Madley, who said in 2019, National Parks and Wildlife Service detected a rise in illegal activity on
1 minute ago
in the Crescent Head Shire government area, and to respond to this illegal activity, the service increased patrols to protect the natural and cultural values of the park. I noticed in the last 12 months that the National Parks and Wildlife Service has adopted an educational approach rather than issuing penalty infringements for taking dogs through the national parks. Well, we take exception to that. Firstly, Russell Madley was a former area manager for this area for over 5 years, and prior to his promotion as director, he used his discretion to allow locals to access Killick Beach via Richardson's Crossing and Goolawah by the four-wheel drive track. There is an interim agreement still in place for Goolawah Beach, and it's not being honoured and has not been honoured since the 20th of November 2020. Locals were not adequately informed about this dishonour, and the national parks refer to this process as educational. Citizens of the Shire collectively refer to it as bullying and intimidation. There's a very fundamental difference between education and intimidation. Now, following the rules of the interim agreement, which changed overnight and without notice, is hardly a deliberate act of the masses to act illegally. I'd like to have a talk about the endangered species. I'm probably going to run out of time, but I have given you a handout.
Your time has, run out.
Can I finish up?
Yeah, give you another 30 seconds.
Okay. I would like you to hopefully ask questions if you'd like to know more about it, but we took the National Parks and Wildlife documentation. We had a look at the critically endangered species on that documentation, and we had a look at the 9 locally identified species from the local team leader for national parks, and we found that national parks had indicated that their species were endangered, and none of them are critically endangered in Australia federally. One of them is vulnerable, but it is secure. It likes the southern reaches of Victoria, Tasmania, and Western Australia. So in conclusion, what I'm saying is that small little tract of beach, Richardson's Crossing to the village and Goolawah Beach, would not significantly endanger any species. Thank you.
Thank you, Jan. Or should I say Ms. Eason? I don't know, but I know you as Jan. You'll always be Jan, so I'm going to continue to call you Jan. If there are any questions, I have a light on, I have a hand on. 2 hands up. I'll take Councillor Baxter, then Councillor Horval, then Councillor Williams. Is it Councillor Williams? Do you have your hand up? I can't. No, then I'll take Councillor Horval.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Jan, for that presentation. When the national parks made their decision, did they offer evidence like sighting of these endangered species on Goolawah Beach, sighting of these birds' nests, etc.? Was that part of their evidence that they offered before they made their decision?
Well, the decision hasn't been made yet because the decision will be made after the review of Goolawah and Hathead National Park, and that'll be on public display for 3 weeks. And that means that that's really our only chance as a community to unite and show the national parks that we're really serious about this. This is an issue for us. When we met with national parks, they provided us with maps, and all of the maps that I've provided with council come from national parks. They are their maps, not ours. The last time I was here, I showed you a map of the whole of Killick Beach, and it showed that until you got to near Ryan's Cut and Maguire's Crossing, there was very little wildlife in the area. The other significant feature is too that the 9 species, that's including the golden and the green bell frog, those 9 species that national parks say our Killick Beach is critically endangered for is incorrect, and they are found in other areas of Australia. I've provided you with maps of those areas, and those maps that you have and the endangered species status comes from the National Parks and Wildlife Service website, and it's also supported by 2 other websites. So those species may be critically endangered in New South Wales, but federally they are not endangered at all, and the only one that has a security issue is the hooded plover, which is the number 2 on the list, and it prefers the southern climes anyway. It's secure in Tasmania, Western Australia, and almost in Victoria.
Thank you.
Councillor Horval.
Thank you. I hope you can hear me.
Yes.
Thank you. Yes, you're talking about membership and meetings of the Regional Advisory Council, and you managed to get council invited to the next meeting. Is that what you said?
Yes, we have asked for a representative from the Shire Council to be invited. As it turns out, we have secured 3 places for council to be represented at this meeting.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. The recommendation to council's meeting tomorrow Ms. Eason, we do two things. We note the advocacy actions and we note responses from the Minister, but we haven't got any actions. Are there any actions you think Council should be doing to further the case for your advocacy of the dog walkers?
My concern is that advocacy won't be strong enough. The national parks feel that they hold all the cards, and up until this point there has been no negotiation, and anything that we've received from national parks has actually been a withdrawal of the privileges of the rights that we've enjoyed up until now. I think Council needs to know that we letterboxed all of the Crescent Head area. We went to every single household and we went to all of the roads that lead into Crescent Head, and we even canvassed some of Gladstone and Kempsey. We have interfaced with over 2,000 households. Now, that's only households, so we're talking 6,000 to 8,000 people. And there's not been a single person that we spoke to who said they knew that these proposals were on the table, and there has not been a single person who said that they approve or they would support what National Parks is proposing.
Okay, so thank you for that. That's quite interesting. The Richardson Crossing area, in the past, people with dogs would travel through the Richardson Crossing to the beach with the dogs in their cars. Is that historically what has happened?
Yes, they've gone from a public road, Loftus, through Richardson's Crossing, and they have unloaded their dogs in the car park. Technically, according to the National Parks website, if they were going to do that legally, they would have to drive onto the beach and then allow the dogs out of the car.
And in all your time at Crescent Head, have you managed to, or have you been told of any dogs attacking wildlife?
No, and I'll be honest, I've had a number of dogs, an Irish setter and poodles and Scottish deerhounds. We've walked those dogs on the beach when we thought we were doing the right thing, and occasionally they would chase a seagull, but they never got within cooey of catching one.
Yeah, smart seagulls. Thank you very much, Ms. Eason.
Thank you.
Councillor McGinn.
Hello, thank you for that very informative briefing. Have you had, or your organisation, contacted our local member, Melinda, and what sort of response did you get from her?
That was apart from Council. Council was our first contact, and then after we spoke with Council and the Mayor wrote her first letter of support, we went to Melinda Pavey, and everything was in lockdown at that stage, so it was an interface by video. But she agreed to support what we were doing, and she wrote a letter of support to the Minister, and I don't know that she advocated, but she certainly spoke on our behalf. When we received the letter back from the Minister, the first one, Melinda Pavey seemed to think that it was too hard. That she said that the national parks don't want to give land back. They don't want to take from national park back to a regional park, that there's a whole lot of legal status involved in that, and time and effort and energy, and she didn't see that that was something that we could easily achieve.
So if you're a law-abiding citizen with a dog that you want to walk along the beach, what's your option? Other than if you don't own a four-wheel drive, so that you can actually drive over. And so you're a non-four-wheel drive owner.
Okay, I've read the letter in the council papers that was written back to council, the second one, and I've received a fairly comprehensive letter from the Minister. They are both very similar, and I believe that the Minister firstly misunderstands what the access is like to Killick Beach, because both of those letters indicate that the high traffic zone is on the beach side, going across the surf life-saving area. Neither of them acknowledge that the most dangerous part is actually crossing the footbridge, that every dog has to cross that footbridge. I was down there last week. I hardly ever take our dog on the front beach. There were 13 dogs crossing the bridge and on the beach. And like the discussion we had earlier, every time there's a child on the bridge, they're terrified, absolutely terrified. It's not wide enough, and it doesn't matter how well behaved your dog is, but our dog's rather boisterous. She's had professional dog training, and she's reasonably well trained, but she loves kids and gets quite boisterous, and that's terrifying. So the minister doesn't understand, firstly, that you've got to get across the bridge to get on the beach. And that's the high traffic zone. And it is a nightmare. And dog owners don't want to be in high traffic areas. They don't want to be in places where they've got to walk past people on the beach anyway, because there are people who don't have dogs, don't like them, are allergic to them and are afraid of them. So we were looking at options where we could run our dogs on beaches that are environmentally insensitive and away from the crowds, keep everybody happy and everybody safe.
Just to follow up, if you were a horse owner and you wanted to take your horse on the beach, can you take your horse down Loftus Road and take it off, walk it out the, what do you call those things, the horse float, and onto the beach to ride your horse? I'm just wondering if this is a consistent rule no matter what animal you have.
That's an excellent question, because I was asked by horse owners to ask that question of council, and I spoke with your ranger, and your ranger said that according to the rules, horses are regarded as vehicles and they are given the same access as a motor vehicle. So where a motor vehicle can go, a horse can go. But by the same token, Marguerite Gray, who is a fire trail rider, horse rider in the Kundabung area, they were threatened with fines. They were all threatened with fines, and the whole horse riding fraternity refused to pay them. And the area director from National Parks came to a public meeting and met with them and agreed to advise them that it would be a warning, that they were not permitted to ride their horses in national parks, and the fines would be lifted. So national parks say you can't and council says you can. I don't know.
Just one question from me, Jan. So from your perspective, what we have here, we've noted this, we've raised the awareness. The next thing to do is to have that meeting, and see what comes out of that before we move and do anything else, or before you do. This is raise the awareness that we need, and we've done what we needed to do so far.
Absolutely. I think we have to provide a united and a strong front to the advisory committee, and talk with Dr. Rosemary Black. The second thing that we have to do is we do have to make sure that our community comes out in force, peacefully in force, when those plans are put on public display, just so the minister can see the number of people who are vitally interested in this and their voices aren't being heard. I've spoken with Tom Vermeulen, who is an ex-council employee. He has approached me. He's concerned, and he has offered his services to assist us. He did council negotiations on the bypass with Russell Madeley at the time. He knows how difficult national parks are to negotiate with, but he is prepared to lend his expertise to this program.
Thank you. There is no more questions, so thank you, and that concludes our public forum for November. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Leave copies of the map.